Hello, this is Alex again. Alex is not my real name, and I'm in a video making mood tonight, so I'm going to make another short video. And I want to talk about my experience in withdrawal from the medications I've been taking, which were psychiatric medications. An antidepressant called Effexor XR, which I want to say is manufactured by Wyeth, which is owned by Pfizer, but it's hard for me to keep track of all of the manufacturers. And then Risperdal, which is an atypical antipsychotic, and I'm not sure off the top of my head who manufactures Risperdal, but it's one of the big companies. And so what had happened to me is I went to a drug rehab in the fall of '07 because my life had gotten pretty out of control with drinking and drugs. And I was on a lot of psychiatric medication at that time. Pretty good doses of Abilify, Zoloft, Klonopin, Wellbutrin, and Lexapro. Those are all the brand names here in the States. I should probably have have the compound names, but I just have the brand names. In any event, on all those drugs, I didn't realize this really until after I got off them, but I was hugely impulsive and ended up in a rehab. The problem with this is the rehab I went to was out in the sticks, in a place in Center Point, Texas. And when I got there, they had a medical director, but I had no contact with him at all. They had a doctor, but he wasn't permanently on the staff. As far as I recall, he would come in, I don't know if it was every day, I don't think so. He'd come in the morning, and he was a retired doctor. Center Point's pretty rural. And anyway, it was decided that the policy of that rehab center was that benzodiazepines are drugs of abuse, and that I was to be taken off of it. I was bankrupt financially at this point, so my parents had dropped me off there. I was 28 or 29 years old, and so I didn't have a lot of say in it, and I was deprived of being able to take it, and given some barbiturates to keep me stable. And when I left, I was in a real bad emotional place, and I later found out it was pretty common in benzodiazepine withdrawal. Especially, turns out I'm a person susceptible to this sort of long-term withdrawal effect. But I had a lot of anxiety, hypochondriasis, just sort of this depression of emptiness and things like this that I'd never really experienced before. And within a couple months, I decided to take my life. So I actually waited a long time because of a family circumstance to attempt suicide. But I attempted suicide and then went to another a psychiatric hospital, a clinic in Houston, Texas. And then at this place, I had a psychiatrist, and she dropped all my medications. And she thought I was under-medicated. I didn't put a lot of thought into the possibility that any of my problems could have been the result of a cold turkey stop of a benzod. This is a recurrent theme in my history, but they did decide they would put me on Effexor, which I was scared to take because I had heard stories of how bad the withdrawal would be should you stop taking it, and also another antipsychotic in lieu of Abilify, like the idea of Risperdal. Anyway, I took those for about 10 months, which was a really terrible experience for me. 10 months, really. And I'll talk in this series about what it's like being on drugs. I'm going to need a way to differentiate drugs, the kind that are that are gifts from big pharma, and those play the most important part in my story. But to a lesser degree, there are also drugs, which are not gifts at all, but are rather expensive street commodities. The lesser of two evils in my case. But I'll find some way to make a distinction. I guess I'll just call them drugs. Hard drugs and street drugs. So anyway, I decided I'd had enough of being on hard drugs, and I told my psychiatrist I was going to stop, and he thought this would be a horrible idea, that I was determined that it was inevitable that I'd just fall back into some sort of psychotic episode. I'd never even had a psychotic episode. Such as it was, he believed that was the likely outcome. In any event, I tapered off my medication within about 8 weeks. And when I got to the end of the 8 weeks, I would say, 3 really pronounced symptoms of the withdrawal. And the first was insomnia. I just couldn't sleep. And the second one was anxiety, unbelievable anxiety. I mean, it was difficult to go through, like if you've ever been to a Subway or like a delicatessen and just try to walk a line and tell a person, hey, give me a roast beef and I'll have this kind of cheese and I'll have lettuce and tomato on my sandwich. That was a very, very challenging, and I very rarely interacted with others for the following several months. And the third thing, which was really the most intense, was I developed a hypersensitivity to drugs, sort of anything that was going to act on sort of I guess what you'd call any of the receptors that were sort of all dysfunctional, disordered after all those years of being on serotonin reuptake inhibiting drugs and norepinephrine drugs and dopamine drugs, etc. So, for instance, I could have a shot of espresso and I would be up for 72 hours. No exaggeration. I could drink one of those 5-hour energy drinks, and I just had to sort of hold on for dear life. I have twice in my life done crystal methamphetamine, the street drug, and I found my reaction to 5-hour energy to be much more profound and potent. It was like hold on to your life, heart beating out of your chest, and sweat pouring down your face. So this has continued. It's been 20 months. I continue to be hypersensitive, and that's a challenge for sure. So I don't. I'm really not able to predict how my body's going to respond, and it's not always drugs, like caffeine's a drug or whatever, but anything that affects those cells, all those systems, however they work. I'm not going to pretend to talk in like I'm an organic chemist or some kind of pharmacologist or psychopharmacologist or whatever the proper terminology would be, because I'm not. I'm a patient. I am a mental health consumer. I have no formal education in this area, so I'm not going to pretend to know, about neuron function and all of this. I'm just going to tell you what happened to me, and that's my plan through these videos. So the main issue with this, though, as it's continued, is I can't take. So I developed acid reflux. So they said, well, you should try a PPI, which I didn't want to do, a proton pump inhibitor, for a number of reasons, but it was getting really bad, and so I did try it, and the first effect was that I was just literally passing out within a couple of days of taking the medication. As I take it, it was I might as well have been taking propofol. It would be take it and run to a chair, so I pass out, in the chair and not falling and hit myself. So some months went by and my reflux was a bigger problem, so I tried a different reflux medication, and this time I took a fraction of the recommended dose by opening the capsule and counting out the granules, and the response I had was just like almost a joint bone pain. I don't know if it's quite like arthritis, but in the hips and wrists, elbows, knees, primarily though in the hips and pelvis. And that I only took two days. On 2 days, I took the medication. So the sense that the first two things have sort of resolved a bit, partially because after about 4 months, I started back on benzodiazepines, taking Klonopin, and then later a mix of Klonopin and Valium. But the third thing, the hypersensitivity, continues, along with a number of other symptoms that are all basically after effects of my discontinuation of psychiatric medication. So I'm going to just leave a bit of advice to people who may be considering stopping their psychiatric medication because for whatever reason. If you do decide to do it, I would recommend that you really consult the internet and reduce your dose very, very, very slowly. And sort of, if you're not having problems, then maybe you can speed it up. But if I had to do it all over again, I certainly would have reduced the effects from the Risperdal. Probably, I mean very slowly. I would have considered maybe a period of 18 months to reduce it down, rather than doing it in 8 weeks. So that's a little bit of my story. One thing I've noticed, and now I've recorded 3 videos, is maybe I'll make an outline or something, because I'm watching the time go by, and I'm trying not to make these long, but I don't really have a lot of focus, I guess, in what I'm saying. So that's something I will definitely try to be more. I will try to be more concise, and but I'll just continue to talk about what has happened to me, and there's a lot really to tell. And I think that if you are a person who does come across this, and like I said, I have no idea if anyone ever will, but it's useful for me. I am just hopeful that you can learn from my experience, and it'll just give you more information and informing your own health decisions and that'll be the purpose. So thank you for watching. Alex says good night.